The topic today, we don't have an introduction slide, but the topic today is construction, engineering, inspection services, really as a tool, the procurement process as a tool for construction personnel. I'm going to walk you through in a very abbreviated fashion. We have 15 minutes. This is a pretty complex process, so I'm going to hit the high notes. If anybody has questions, comments, concerns, reach out to us after the session, maybe in the panel discussion after this, and we can talk through any questions you may have. But hang on to your seats because we'll get going now. So the process here is going to be, I'm going to talk very briefly through the PEPS division, what we do, sort of where we've come from. We'll move on to scope and innovation that's taken place in the CEI offerings around the state. We'll then move to the schedule for obtaining CEI services, and we'll close things out with talking through some budget considerations. This is a hot topic. We're trying to evaluate what the cost of your CEI services are going to be. There's no set answer, and we'll talk through that. And last, I'll show you where all our service centers are, give you some contact information so you can reach out to us if you have questions, and we'll move on to the next presenter. So jumping right in, the purpose and need of the PEPS division is our role in the agency is to procure engineering, architectural, and surveying services through professional contracts. Now, for purposes of CEI, this is a qualifications-based selection and a qualifications-based work authorization assignment process. It's very heavily regulated. Our procurement process is dictated by law. We have a number of federal regulations that determine how we operate, as well as Texas's Administrative Code Title 43 gives us a lot more detail on the process. Now, PEPS was started in 2013. We have a lot of remnant phases of regionalization in TxDOT. When regionalization folded up, PEPS was started to get their arms wrapped around the statewide procurement processes. And since that time, since PEPS was initiated, we've pretty consistently modernized and consolidated the engineering procurement process into as nice and neat of a package as we can. We're constantly making improvements. That's our commitment to our customers in the consultant industry and in the TxDOT districts and divisions, but we're sort of a continuous improvement mindset in the PEPS division. Now, in addition to the procurement processes, we manage the agency's Strategy 111 consultant budget. In that process, we work with the districts very closely to help identify the projects that are candidates for CEI services and that would help the district move the needle on their project delivery program. And we do this as a division, we do this with all 25 districts, and our service center for divisions is currently supporting 18 of the TxDOT divisions. Now, PEPS also has another role where we serve as the liaison between TxDOT and the ACEC, or the American Council of Engineering Companies. So for all our consultants in the room that are ACEC members, PEPS is we're the middleman between TxDOT and that organization. Now, let's jump into the scope. Talk about the scope of what CEI services are. It breaks down into three primary categories. There's a number of other offerings that a CEI team can bring to the table, but there's really three distinct functions that they serve. The first and most important, in my opinion, is construction inspection. The first phrase on my slide here in the construction inspection column is key. Engineer-led inspection teams, ELIT. It's in the first paragraph of the scope of work in any CEI service contract in TxDOT. This phrase, engineer-led inspection teams, is what separates CEI from Rent-A-Tech. These are engineering services where we go out and procure expertise and manpower in construction inspection from the consultant community. Now, it's a couple other offerings under this particular heading. We really ask our CEI teams to push our safety program. We ask them to pretty intensively monitor our traffic control, the use of devices, traffic control devices, and our construction methods. Make sure we are building our jobs as safely as possible. The next one is conformity with the PS&E packages that are produced by either our consultant partners or the districts or divisions. We ask that they monitor construction for conformity to those. Now, the next one, I'm going to talk about this more in a few minutes, but monitoring the construction schedule. There's a lot to be gained by having a CEI team and their qualified schedulers monitoring our construction schedules. Last, we ask that the CEI teams ensure compliance with all our environmental laws, rules, regulations. We want them to monitor those stormwater pollution prevention plans, any permits that are on site, anything environmentally related on our projects. We ask that our CEI teams monitor those as well. Now, the second primary category here is material testing. Our CEI teams come with a fleet of people and equipment and expertise in testing per the guide schedule for the contract, the construction contract that they are inspecting for us. And they have to ensure compliance with all the standard specifications, special specs, and special provisions in this process. Now, this one, testing documentation, sort of falls in the record-keeping category as well, but putting it into the material testing, because it's a critical feature of CEI services that in the testing that they do, they need to monitor their documentation. They need to store this documentation in Site Manager, make sure they're providing us a quality record of the construction that is taking place. In doing that, deficiencies come up, so we ask the CEI teams to also do deficiency documentation, reporting, and follow through on the resolution process with our X-Site reports. And as these instances come up, they can do letters of certification for our materials, as well as if an exception comes up, they can process exception letters for us and submit those to the department. Now, last column all the way to the right is record keeping. This is one of the services, we'll talk again about this one in a minute, but really vital service that the consultant community is providing exceptional service to the agency in this area. Now, we're asking them to produce final records for us, document change orders, and even process change orders. Take manifest tickets and store those, evaluate material on hand, do barricade inspections, TDLR inspections, maintain our correspondence file, which is extremely important with CEI teams to maintain the correspondence between the construction contractor, the CEI team, and TxDOT. We ask that they maintain our as-built plans through the process and hand over a really good quality set of as-built plans at the end of construction, and maintain our test certification reports in the system. Now, there's some key goals that we're looking for out of these services on our projects. The first is we want expertise and manpower. That's the whole purpose of CEIs, to bring in expertise that we may or may not have, and certainly manpower that we very often do not have. It's one of the core reasons we use CEI. The next is to improve safety, the quality of our construction projects, and the performance of our system. With additional manpower comes better construction inspection, better built systems that last longer and operate better. The last one, in this reducing risk, it sort of brings in the prior two bullet points here. We're reducing risk, improving the efficiency of the construction project, and we're being better stewards of taxpayer dollars. Now, I say reduce risk, we're reducing safety, we're bringing in their expertise. The ones you generally think of, the ones you don't think of is, particularly our rural districts, a lot of our urbans, we don't have the manpower to develop. Wichita Falls District is a prime example right now. They have a $300 million project on I-35 coming up. A rural district cannot staff a project to inspect that large. In this process, we pass the risk of employing these staff members to the consultant community. We pay a little bit of a premium for these people, but we pass the risk of employing them to the consultant community. When the project's done, the risk goes away with the consultant, right? TxDOT doesn't have the obligation to staff those people in perpetuity, right? That's one of the other core values of CEIs, bringing in people as we need and then moving them on to wherever else they're needed. Now, there's a note in the bottom right-hand corner. I want everybody to evaluate this note. Hang on this note, because I've been asked this question more today and in the months leading up to today than any other question. It is really important that everyone understands with CEI that we cannot have the CEI team design a change to the plans and then inspect that change. It's a conflict of interest. We can't ask those folks. If an error occurs, we don't even want to put them in the situation of being tempted to cover up the error that they made. We don't want that situation. So if a change needs to be made and your CEI team can design it very efficiently on the fly, you just need to bring in either TxDOT resources to inspect the work that took place in that change, or another CEI team to come in and inspect. We just need a second unbiased party that wasn't associated with the design of that to perform the inspection. So let's talk real quickly about innovation. Do a time check because I'm running out of time here. Real quickly, we'll talk about innovation. A couple of things that are going on around the state. Wichita Falls District and Yoakum districts are using construction record keepers, the construction record keepers that are there at the district or nearby that are performing record keeping on ongoing projects being managed by CEI. These record keepers are pulling double duty with their remaining hours in a week and closing out projects. A lot of districts have a backlog of projects to close out in their Director of Construction office. CEI teams are jumping in, helping out with this, clearing that queue for our districts. Now, the next is constructability review. We have two great examples, Wichita Falls District and Waco districts on two different segments of I-35. They had the foresight to reach out to PEPs, plan a CEI procurement early, well before the project let and plans were done. We bring in the CEI team and their construction expertise to perform plan review, constructability review, and make a better, more buildable set of plans for us to let later on. Then they're on board through construction. These are plans they have thoroughly reviewed, helped with the final development of. A lot of the issues are worked out in advance of the occurrence of it. Next is, this is what I said, construction scheduling support. Two great examples, one in the Waco district, Bell County, Clayton Zacca. I don't know if he's in the room or not, but he worked very closely with one of our consultant partners to do time impact analysis and really extensive schedule analysis to refute some very substantial claims on a construction project on I-35. Saved the state a lot of money that we would not, without that data, we would not otherwise have had the ammunition to refute those claims. The Brownwood district's using this construction scheduling support on Ranger Hill. Ranger Hill has over 2 million cubic feet of embankment, nearly 2 million cubic feet of cut on their project, right? It's a huge dirt work operation. If productivity is not maintained, if they are running slow, running fast, we need to know about these things because it's going to impact the project timeline later on. Last one's critical geotechnical expertise. We have CEI teams that are bringing in some really exceptional TxDOT retirees that are geotechnical experts, wrote the book on this stuff literally. And we can reach out to these CEI partners, get this geotechnical expertise, as we did on Ranger Hill again, and bring in that expertise for our projects. Now, talk real quickly through the schedule for CEI. If you need CEI, there's two distinct components of the process. The first is planning. PEP's division goes through a planning cycle May of every year to plan the upcoming year. We reach out to our district partners, get their list of projects coming up that they will need CEI services for. We distribute these needs into two columns. One is above 5 million, where that's well above an indefinite deliverable contract limit, so we call those specific deliverables, and they are procured individually. For the needs, and there's usually numerous, we consolidate the smaller needs below $5 million into indefinite deliverable contracts where we can do 3 or 4 or 5 different projects, manage those with CEI under a single contract. Now, we go through this planning phase in May of every year. It's released to the consultant community in August or September. That plan is not final. We make revisions all the time. If you as a district suddenly have a priority change, a project move up, you need to get a CEI contract sooner than the next planning cycle. We can do that. We add procurements all the time. Recognize there may be as much as a 120-day delay. If we've already started a procurement wave, you may have to wait till the next wave. But we can usually get a procurement in our schedule and complete it very quickly. Now, the bottom here is the second portion of this obtaining CEI services process. It's the actual procurement. CEI is considered a federal management procurement. This process is 145 days. There's just not much we can do about that. We've gained time on that on a handful of procurements, but they generally take 145 days. Recognize that 145 business days is 7 months. It is not an extremely quick process. So just keep that in mind. If you need CEI services, just give us as much advance notice as you possibly can. We will work with you to get it delivered as quickly as possible. Now, let's talk about the budget. This is another hot topic with CEI services as of late. There's a misconception in the consultant industry that we shoot for a percentage of construction cost, and that's just it. We're not willing to talk about anything else, and that is just that. It's a misconception. We use percentage of construction cost as a sanity check to make sure the dollar amount we're being asked to pay is reasonable, but we are not set to any one particular percentage of construction cost. We'll talk through that. There's a number of factors that pertain and then really contribute to the cost of CEI services. For planning purposes, I usually tell districts, plan on 7%. If it's real complex, plan on 10. You shoot somewhere in that range. It's pretty close. For purposes of planning, that'll get you real close. But again, there's other significant factors like the duration of the project, the complexity of the work that's going to take place, and really the physical location is a big driver of CEI cost. Now, we have some examples that I'm going to show you. Example number one, to really show you how percentage of construction cost is not always a good metric for these costs. Say we've got a $30 million overlay in Central West Texas. This is based on an actual project. The duration of this project was 8 months. And some contributing factors, you're talking about Central West Texas, 8-month project, but a very high dollar amount at $30 million for overlay type work. So we've got a moderate dollar amount, we've got very low duration, 8 months, we've got low complexity, it's just overlay work, and we have modest other direct expenses. We have to get people out to Central West Texas to actually inspect this thing. So, and we have some moderate testing costs associated with asphalt pavement testing and any other pertinent services that are taking place. In the end, $30 million, it ended up being around a $900,000 fee, which is 3%. It's well below. For $30 million, $900,000 to inspect that job it's not terrible. It's a pretty low percent of construction cost. Example two that I'll give you is a $30 million interchange in a metropolitan area, Fort Worth district. It's a 3-year project. We got a moderate dollar amount, long duration, high complexity, low ODEs, but a very high testing unit cost. There's a lot of concrete, other things that go into that. This is a $5 million fee, 6%, because it's a lot longer duration, but ODEs are gonna mitigate that a little bit because they're low. We're in a metropolitan area where resources, people, materials, those things should be readily available. We don't have a high cost associated with those. Third example is kind of the do not do this example. It's a $900,000 off-system bridge in West Texas, 18 months of construction. It's a low dollar amount, moderate duration, fairly low complexity, extremely high ODEs. It takes a lot of money to get a handful of people out to West Texas for 18 months. We got a fairly low testing demand on an off-system bridge. In this case, the fees generally come in about $900,000, which is the same as the construction cost. That's 100% of construction cost, which this situation brings up a conversation. Pros and cons of CEI. Some cons are when you have low dollar amount, long duration projects, it doesn't make it economically viable to use CEI on these. This is not a good candidate project for CEI services, standalone. My recommendation for districts and our consultant partners, if you have these conversations, this is a prime opportunity to start bundling projects. Bundle the off-system bridge with the overlay. Bundle it with a handful of other projects in the same area that will help the district move the needle on their project delivery, right? We get more economy of scale, higher dollar amount. We can utilize their resources more efficiently throughout the duration of construction that way, and it ends up being a very valuable service to the state at a good cost. So this kind of winds down my presentation. If anybody has questions, comments, or concerns, you can always reach out to us in the PEPS division. We have a lot of service centers now that are distributed all over the place. The Central Service Center has been split in rural and urban. So this slide here will give you an idea of, based on your geographic location, who you can call and talk to get help. That's what we're here for, is to help, to provide those services to the districts and divisions to help deliver their projects. So with that, thank you.